It is a Thursday, day one, Canucks training camp. Some people saying it's the 54th training camp.
Yeah.
I'm sticking by my guns. It's the 53rd NHL training camp for the Vancouver Canucks. All of our guests today, including John Shannon, are brought to you by the Vancouver Giants. Get your season tickets for as low as $17 per game. Or pick up a White Spot pack, which includes 4 tickets and a $40 White Spot gift card starting at $125. Get all the details at vancouvergiants.com/tickets. What's the new owner's name again? Drew Scott? He would appreciate your support now that he's bucked up for a piece of Ron Toigo's Giants as we bring in NHL analyst, co-host of the Bob McCown podcast, John Shannon. John, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
I'm great, boys. Are you sure it's not the 52nd?
Oh, come on. I've had a million people coming at me, and now you too?
52.
We had a lockout. We lost a whole season. Boy.
Yeah.
This is where I'm going with 53. This is how I do it, is that despite what anybody says, 2010, 2011, they had a massive patch on their jerseys and a logo at center ice saying 40th NHL season. So I go from there, and this is their 53rd training camp. That's the way I look at it.
Good explanation.
Listen. I am not going to argue with you, Don Taylor.
No,
by the way, this is we're going to change the name of this, and I think you can get the sales guys. This is called the Okanagan Hour. because Gordy Herbert and I grew up 26. We grew up 27 miles apart. So.
Wow. Any chance you know him at all, John?
No, I did watch him play high school basketball, though. I'm a little older than him, and he played for a great coach in Penticton for the Lakers, a guy named Fred Fedoruk. They were a dominant team in the Okanagan Valley at the time that Gordy was a player there. He was a hell of a player there, and he was a great player at Idaho when he played college basketball for the Vandals.
The Vandals, the Vandals with a Don Matthews connection. That's where he coached at one point as well, the late, great Don Matthews. Okay, hockey. I know on the Bob McCown podcast you had Ray Ferraro. He's going to join us on the show tomorrow, by the way, but you recently had Ray on the show, and he's going to join the Canucks crew along with continuing to work at ESPN. What makes Ray such an effective analyst, John?
I think that his eye for the game is one thing, and his ability not to be shy to tell the truth. And I also think Ray understands who he's talking to. He's not talking to coaches. He's not talking to players. He's talking to hockey fans. And I think Ray has a great ability to communicate on a level that everybody understands. Great, and part of that is a great sense of humor. Part of that is the ability to be glib, because we all know what he was like on the ice when he played. Mm-hmm. He was a little bit of a yapper, and that has come across in so many ways. He's right now, I think he's at the top of the list in either country as the best analyst of the game in the country, and in both countries for my mind. He's that good, and I think the Canucks are blessed to have him, and I think he's thrilled to be able to drive to a home game and not have to go to Vancouver International Airport every second day to fly out of town.
Yeah, and the Canucks get Dave Tomlinson as well. NHL camps opening up this week, day one today for the Canucks. Do you miss the days of camps being a week or two or longer versus what we have now? What are they, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then camp is over? Do you miss those old days, John?
I hated going to training camps anyway, even as an observer, and I hated preseason games just because you can't tell. You just don't know, and how many. I mean. Those guys that are going to have to televise the games, it's difficult to find stories. As far as I'm concerned, preseason games, exhibition games, whatever you want to call them, they're for the ultimate nerds in our game. I'm gonna sit back and wait for the second week in October and really enjoy it when there's 2 points on the line. We have enough hockey in 82 games of the regular season and 28 games of playoffs if you go 4 7-game series. We have enough hockey that I don't have to worry about the preseason.
Hey, John, Alvin, Rutherford, and Talk at Big Presser yesterday in Vancouver, and Jim said that this is a playoff team if, capital letters, if everything goes, swimmingly. Do you agree?
I do, and I think the pressure is on the guy that's in your poll today. I think the biggest pressure is on Thatcher Demko. I mean, you guys had talked about what they were like in the bubble. Tell me that Thatcher Demko wasn't the difference maker in the bubble.
Oh, big time.
He is the cornerstone to this team. We all know that they can score. We all know that Rick Tocchet is going to put a system in place that's going to make them more defensively responsible. To me, it's all up to Thatcher Demko, and he understands that. He squarely knows what exactly has to happen for this team to make the playoffs, and he has to play lights out every time he plays. And, the backup goaltender, whoever that is, has to play 500. If they play 20 games, get 20 points, then life's pretty good.
John, it's our first time talking to you since Mike Babcock, the incident, such big news all over the hockey world. Your thoughts on Mike? Didn't even get to coach a game in Columbus.
No, Donnie and I talked about this a little bit last week, and to the point where we still don't know all the facts. We don't. Anybody that says they do, they don't know all the facts. They know lots of them, but they don't know all of them. What bothers me in all of this is that I think the Blue Jackets, after phone calls from both Marty Walsh and Gary Bettman, had no choice. And whether we'll know the contents of those phone calls will be for another day. What bothered me out of all of this in reading the press release is I'm not sure Mike Babcock apologized.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Mike Babcock knows what he did wrong yet, or will admit to doing anything wrong. I hope that we hear one day that Mike understands. And from that perspective, I don't think the Jackets, by the time those two calls came, I don't think the Jackets had any choice. They have tried to be as upfront as possible about it. I thought the press conference that John Davidson had on Monday, and I'm biased, was outstanding. And he took it as a full frontal, that it was a mistake, and they need to go past it. And they're going to give Pascal Vincent a chance to coach. And so, as far as I'm concerned, it's the issue is dead, and I hope not only the Blue Jackets learn from it, but I hope Mike learns from it, and I hope other teams learn from it as well.
John, back to the Canucks. A trade this week involving Tanner Pearson going to Montreal. Canucks get Casey Smith. Again, they have to give up a draft pick, in this case a third rounder in 2025, to get that cap space. Do you have a problem with them? And this isn't the first time they've done this. We're talking about the Jim Rutherford era, giving up draft picks in order to create cap space.
Jim's not the first manager, nor will he be the last manager to have to do it. Mm-hmm. That is a symptom of the flat cap that we have lived with for the last 4 or 5 seasons. We also know that Jim and Patrick are very familiar with Casey DeSmith, having him in Pittsburgh, understanding what kind of player he can be. I didn't think Casey DeSmith was ever going to be a Montreal Canadian. I never thought that. I mean, that was just moving dollars and bodies around in order to try to make things work at an appropriate time. So this to me was just in essence a part of the previous trade that Pittsburgh and Montreal made. So from that perspective, perhaps it's going to help the scenario for the backup goaltending in Vancouver. But, we see this all the time, and it's not something that Jim is the only one that does, or Patrick is the only one that does. It's just a symptom of what we're living with, and hopefully we won't have that problem next year when the cap does go up $4.5 million. But as long as there's a cap system in place, and, that read in parentheses, forever, we are always going to have this problem in the National Hockey League.
Before I let you go, I believe you had Doug McLean on as a guest as well. I combed through his book. I've read the one chapter on the Lindros rule It's really good. I don't know how much of it you've read, John. We had him on. We had
I
him on
haven't read the book
yesterday.
yet.
Yeah, we had him on yesterday as a guest. It was good.
Doug is charging me $34.95 for my copy.
Yeah.
Which is normal for Doug. So
Yeah, I got the same bill,
and I'm happy to pay because I know Doug's a senior citizen on a fixed income now, and I'm happy to pay. But,
Yeah.
but here, Doug's one of the great storytellers of our time. I miss him on television. I wish he had a chance to be a little more prolific on the airwaves again, but Doug and I go way back. In fact, when he got fired for the first time in Florida, the first person to call and offer him a job was me. I offered him a couple of weekends at Hockey Night in Canada to do games in Montreal, and he has not stopped talking since.
Well, it sounded great yesterday, and the book, at least the one chapter that I've read, is a very good read. John, thanks so much. We'll talk next week.
Cheers, boys.